determine was that Rayquaza Kyogre core, which we might be seeing in this upcoming match.
Yeah, and for those that might be unfamiliar with Paul Chua and what he's been running, he is definitely one of the best Groudon Xerneas players, especially in this format. That's what he won the most recent regional championship with. That was a relatively standard Groudon Xerneas team, but it was a special Groudon. Looks like indeed we are about to go into team preview, and it looks like Paul is of course bringing Groudon Xerneas.
He's already locked in his selection here in team preview. Diana running Kyogre, Rayquaza, Incineroar, Tapu Koko, Whimsicott, and Stakataka. Over on Paul's side, as you can see, he's already locked in Xerneas, Salamence, Amoonguss. He locked in way too fast.
Yeah, I mean, once again, this is the standard Groudon Xerneas versus Rayquaza Kyogre matchup. So Paul very clearly has a set strategy to win here. But Diana does have two means of speed control with the Whimsicott and the Stakataka. I certainly expect one of the two to make an appearance here. Just a question of which one she opts to go for. Not going to be either of them as a lead though, as some straight offense coming out from her end.
Yeah, so Diana going to go ahead and lead with Tapu Koko and Kyogre. Over on Paul's side, going to lead with Xerneas and Incineroar here. That's going to be a very standard lead for those Xerneas Groudon cores, just being able to go for a Fake Out and a Geomancy right off the bat. Kyogre and Tapu Koko again for Diana, going to try to have to find a way to deal with that possible setup.
Yeah, so of course in these positions, Incineroar always has access to the free Fake Out, so you can Fake Out the Tapu Koko, which can get access to something like Taunt and get a guaranteed Geomancy off, but it would be at the cost of taking a ton of damage with Xerneas even when you're set up, and Incineroar potentially getting knocked out by a water type attack from the Incineroar, something like a Water Spout or an Origin Pulse. Alternatively, you can actually Fake Out the Kyogre, but then you're at risk of eating up an Electrium Z, if the Tapu Koko does have that on some Xerneas, or even a Fairy Z if it's carrying it, or a Taunt. So typically, Tapu Koko is probably the better option to Fake Out here, but Paul opting to just go for Xerneas right in the beginning of the game, so we'll see who he decides to target, which one he thinks is a bigger threat.
Tapu Koko on Diana's side is going to switch out. Stakataka is going to take the field, going to be able to provide a lot more support and ways to deal with that Xerneas in the coming turns if it does go for a Geomancy here, as Stakataka gets faked out by that Incineroar, not doing any damage at all really to it, as Xerneas is content to just set up its Geomancy.
Yeah, so I think Diana assessing that Paul has to Fake Out the Tapu Koko there, so making a nice switch. Stakataka, definitely one of the best Pokemon on her team that she can switch into this position right now. Kyogre is definitely going to get a big water type attack off here, either a Water Spout or an Origin Pulse, presumably, maybe a Scald into the Incineroar. Either way should mean Incineroar going down. It is going to be that Water Spout
here. Big Water Spout from this Kyogre landing into that Incineroar, gets the big one-hit KO, doing about 40% damage to that Xerneas as well, so really well done by that Kyogre to just get a KO on that Incineroar. No options for Paul to be able to cycle those Intimidates later on, and just chipping away at that Xerneas.
Yeah, more importantly, Stakataka comes out for free. It's a really important Pokemon in this matchup, and it really hasn't taken any damage. Now, Groudon comes out, really the only Pokemon you can switch in for Paul's end. Of course, Groudon will have a ground type attack, which should be able to just knock out the Stakataka, but most Stakatakas are also carrying the Shuka Berry. So, I mean, Paul might opt to double up onto that Stakataka if he's worried about potential Trick Room going up. Kyogre right now obviously really can't do very much as well. So, even though Diana got a knockout and a half there on the Xerneas is still set up, and you give the free switch to Groudon, so Paul is still very comfortable, I think, in the position he's in. He's got to worry about Trick Room going up, so he's probably going to really want to deny Stakataka from setting up Trick Room, but it looks like Diana's actually maybe trying to bait an attack out right now.
Yeah, Stakataka actually forced to switch out as Rayquaza takes the field here. The airlock ability is going to be important, allowing that Kyogre to be able to go for a Origin Pulse or a Water Spout into that Groudon, as Xerneas is content to just use a Dazzling Gleam here. He's going to do some big damage against that Rayquaza, but Rayquaza hangs on with 25 hit points here as Groudon reveals Earth Power. Doesn't affect Rayquaza, and here comes Kyogre's Origin Pulse, connects with both Groudon and Xerneas. That's going to be the KO on that Groudon.
Yeah, that's a great play there by Diana. You bait out the attacks onto Stakataka, and you just kind of get the free knockout onto Groudon. I mean, wow, what a great turn there. That's two Pulse Pokemon down already, and you've still got Stakataka in the back, and now you don't have to deal with the biggest threat, which is that Groudon. So excellent play there from Diana's end this last turn. And with Electric Terrain being set up as well, these Amoonguss can't really spore anything, so Stakataka should be able to just really close out this game. Great decision making. I mean, it's only been 2 turns so far, but Diana played those 2 turns perfectly.
Yeah, you do have to watch out though. I mean, Amoonguss can put that Stakataka to sleep once that Electric Terrain leaves the field, and of course can draw away any Gyro Balls possibly thrown towards that Xerneas as well. And Amoonguss isn't a speed Pokemon either, so those Gyro Balls won't be doing much damage to that Amoonguss, as Kyogre now switches out. Tapu Koko is going to take the field for that Kyogre, maybe trying to reset that weather for later on, as Mega Rayquaza is going to take the field here, going to activate that Delta Stream that, you know, Rayquaza really enjoys being under, just giving it a little bit of extra bulk. Probably going to try to go for an extreme speed here, try to get some more damage done onto that Xerneas.
Yeah, I mean, I think Amoonguss here really can't afford to has to either, you protect Xerneas and you go for potential Spore, or you just Rage Powder away. Extreme Speed is going to go in that Protect, but with multiple turns of Electric Terrain still up, I mean, yeah, there's still the potential of Stack Attack to really close this out. Switching in Tapu Koko there is a little bit interesting, though, because you would imagine that you'd want to wait for the terrain to disappear so you can reset it again. It's still going to be quite difficult, obviously, to take care of the Stack Attacka, but this next turn is a little bit awkward because Xerneas is able to just outspeed and go for something like a Dazzling Gleam. But yeah, I guess protect the Koko, sack the Rayquaza, and then you'll get Stack Attack in for free this next turn.
Yeah, so Rayquaza takes its first turn of sleep, but it's just going to get KO'd right here by this Xerneas anyways, as Xerneas uses Dazzling Gleam now. Tapu Koko protects itself, connects with the Rayquaza, gets the KO, and now Stack Attack can come in just for free.
Yeah, and there still are turns of Electric Terrain, so more importantly, you can't Spore it, as Grass out there does go into the Protect. So I mean, yeah, for Diana, the most important thing is just basically not taking free damage from, like, that Grass Knot that we saw. So, you know, you don't want to just switch it in willy-nilly. But obviously, the Amoonguss does really protect the Stack Attack quite well. And with Electric Terrain expiring relatively soon, like, you know, do you want to set up Trick Room? Because Stack Attack is going to be taking considerable damage from the Grass Knot. And with Koko being brought out in this position, it's kind of awkward because you might not even be able to reset terrain again. So yeah, I think Diana assessing that I need terrain up for the remainder of the game, wants to switch it out to make sure that it will be up. Amoonguss also has the important decision to, you know, do you go for the Rage Powder, which is the more consistent play, or do you go for a Grass Knot expecting something like a Rock Slide, which shouldn't knock out Xerneas?
Yeah, Amoonguss now using Rage Powder here, going to try to draw away single-type target attacks, really protecting that Xerneas from a Gyro Ball, as Xerneas uses Dazzling Gleam, going to get some chip damage out on that Stack Attacka, and does good damage to that Kyogre, as Kyogre hangs on with just a sliver of hit points, as Stack Attacka here can tend to just use Trick Room here. Going to go ahead and make sure that Xerneas will be moving last on the field. Of course, Amoonguss is not a speed Pokemon, so, you know, it's going to be underspeeding a lot of things under Trick Room, so, you know, you can go for Spores. That's why maintaining that Tapu Koko was so important, as you mentioned.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting, though, because, I mean, Amoonguss actually does a lot of damage to Stack Attack, Kyogre, and the Tapu Koko, and the only real damage output you have on Diana's end is an Ice Beam from Kyogre, so yeah, like, Trick Room is up now. No switching into the Tapu Koko, though. This could be a Spore going into Stack Attack. We'll have to see.
Yep, Kyogre now protects itself, as Stack Attack goes for a Gyro Ball, though. Underspeeds that Amoonguss, gets big damage on that Xerneas and gets a KO, so that is so important right there. No Rage Power, just really just baiting that Spore to come out.
Yeah, no Protect from the Xerneas as well, more importantly, so now you will be able to... no Spore either, yeah, and the Grass out into the Kyogre. Wow, so that worked out as perfectly as possible, I think, for Diana's end. Now all she has to do is basically reverse her own Trick Room, and that Kyogre, should it have an Ice-type attack, which most Kyogres do, should be able to just knock out the Amoonguss. I was thinking maybe Amoonguss could actually pull this one off, you know, if the Xerneas protected there, if the Grass type goes into Stack Attack, like Amoonguss can put in some work under Trick Room, but yeah, Diana's going to make sure now that she has the one main attack that she needs to beat this Amoonguss. And Stack Attack also getting the Beast Boost means that Rock Slides, if she's running it, should be hitting for pretty good damage.
Yeah, so right now, just trying to undo everything. Amoonguss will be able to hang on for a while here, and it's going to be... Wow, that does so much damage! The Clear Smog hits into that Tapu Koko for super effective damage, doing 50% to that Tapu Koko. So the Trick Room is now reversed. Tapu Koko doesn't really have any attacks that can do that much damage to Amoonguss. So right now, this Amoonguss is sitting pretty healthy. Grass Knot's going to be doing a good amount of damage, but man, it needs to be able to survive a couple of attacks here if it wants to try to pull this off, as Tapu Koko uses Thunderbolt into that Amoonguss. Not much damage dealt at all. Amoonguss now using Grass Knot here, going to land into that Stack Attack. And how much damage is it going to do here? Pretty decent, maybe like 2 or 3 more hits will for sure get the KO. As Stack Attack uses Gyro Ball. That actually does good damage right there. It does about 30%.
Yeah, that's really good, and yeah, that should effectively seal up the game here. A combination of attacks. Like, I was thinking the one way Paul could win this is if the Amoonguss does have like one of the bulky 50% berries, but a really great play there from Diana. I mean, she's going up against such a tough opponent. Paul clearly had a game plan there, but Diana just baited out attacks both turns, basically. She made a great switch in. I think Paul was just going for pretty much like the safest play possible both times. you have to fake out Tapu Koko because, you know, it gets access to a potential Z move or taunt, so you don't want to risk it going for a big attack, and you kind of have to double up into stack attack up because if Trick Room goes up, then you probably lose. But Diana reading into it both times, going for the better play and really being able to take a win. But, I mean, that was scary, right? Like, Paul definitely could have pulled it off with Xerneas and Amoonguss there, had the Xerneas protected there, had maybe a Sporn gone out into stack attack, could have been quite different. So it was one of those games where it wasn't like Diana had the game 100% won, but it is really difficult to put yourself in positions, especially in this matchup where you'll have like guaranteed wins.
Now jumping back into team preview between Diana and Paul, one big thing that Paul's gonna have to do is deal with that stack attacker and not lose so much in response, right? I mean,
yeah.
He lost that Groudon because of the really beautiful Rayquaza switch. So Paul's gonna have to play around that. He has to be able to predict when that Rayquaza is gonna come in to allow his Groudon to be safe.
Yeah, ultimately, that really was, I would say, the game-defining turn because Groudon is so essential in this matchup, and to have just traded it for a little bit of damage was not worth it. So I think Paul maybe tunnel vision a little bit, saw the stack attack in front of him, thought surely you're gonna stay in, I'm gonna get the knockout, and even if I lose my Groudon, that's fine. But he ended up trading Groudon for very little damage. So that was an excellent play from Diana. We'll see how she recovers, and it's actually a bit of an adjustment here. I'm really happy to see a new Pokemon up here on the field.
Kyogre and Whimsicott take the field for Diana's side of the field as Xerneas and Incineroar are the same leads for Paul.
So Whimsicott, definitely an interesting pick. It gets access to Tailwind. It gets access to something like Encore, which a lot of them carry. Of course, it gets access to Taunt. Probably not carrying all of those, but most likely carrying at least a combination of them, right? So here, Incineroar can go for a fake out onto the Whimsicott, but if Xerneas Geomancies, then you have to be very aware of potential Encore the following turn. But if you don't Geomancy, then the Kyogre will just get big attacks off. Alternatively, maybe you fake out the Kyogre, don't take any damage, let Whimsicott do what it wants to, but then the Tailwind goes up. So I like this lead a lot from Diana, and the Whimsicott puts on so much pressure, especially because no one knows what moves it's carrying other than Diana, right? So like Paul has to play the guessing game. He always have to worry about Encore, and that's one of the scary things about playing against Whimsicott. Might not have it, but if it does, then like it's gonna go for it.
Yeah, so Whimsicott here just gonna protect, probably trying to maintain its Focus Sash and keep it intact here as Incineroar uses Fake Out. It is going to land into that Kyogre slot, going to make it flinch as Xerneas gets a very free Geomancy right here. So now, what is Diana going to do with this Whimsicott the next turn? This is going to be really important. You can't protect the Xerneas because then you're just going to get Encored into Protect. If you try something right now, you're just going to get Encored into Geomancy.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, I feel like it comes down to, does it have Encore or not? If not, then the Xerneas surely will just sweep through everything. So you'd imagine that Diana has some way to deal with the Xerneas, Encore being the best option, but, you know, she might have some other moves as well. I mean, pretty clear-cut play on her end here. You're definitely Encoring the Xerneas. Kyogre, you actually have some freedom in what you want to go for. You might expect the Incineroar to switch out into the Groudon and go for Hard Switch, so maybe you Ice Beam that slot expecting the Groudon to come in, as Groudon is going to be coming in. So we got to see what Whimsicott's going for.
Just as you predicted, Aaron, the Groudon comes in for that Incineroar, just trying to, you know, preserve that Incineroar for later on. Doesn't want to sacrifice that Incineroar right now. So what does this Whimsicott have? What is this Whimsicott going to do?
Is there an Encore? I mean, Xerneas might protect, so we'll see if they're like that will at least prevent it from getting Encored for a turn. But like you mentioned, you can just Encore into Protect anyway. And if Whimsicott does have the Focus Sash, then it's going to be really hard to take care of it.
Xerneas protects itself here, and Whimsicott is going to move right after this here, and it is going to reveal an Encore. So now you got to be a bit more careful. So Kyogre instead just going for a Water Spout, predicted by Paul. So, you know, great switch right there into that Groudon.
Yeah, but, you know, once again, you can still just Encore Xerneas, and this means that now Xerneas won't be set up for the remainder of the game. I mean, in order for Paul to really get out of this one, he's going to need 2 more protects on that Xerneas, and you're going to need to Fire Punch this Whimsicott twice. But Diana should at least be able to slow down the Xerneas. Kyogre's in an awkward spot, obviously, because it can't go for Water-type attacks. So you could maybe switch the Kyogre out into the Rayquaza in the back and just go for an Encore on a Xerneas. That's probably the safest option, and then pivot Kyogre back in. You basically just want...
Oh! Whimsicott going to switch out. Rayquaza is going to take the field instead. Probably going to try to get the KO on this Groudon. Maybe Diana's trying to force Paul's hand here after revealing that Encore. Does Xerneas actually just go for some attacks here? As Xerneas just goes for a Dazzling Gleam!
Oh, man.
Insane damage being dealt right now. Rayquaza hangs on again thanks to its bulk as Groudon uses Eruption. That will get the KO on that Rayquaza, and that means that Airlock isn't even active anymore.
That's going to be game. I mean, I think Diana was clearly reading Paul into switching out the Xerneas, but that's just such a risky play, right? Like, Paul knows there's not much he can do there, and I don't know. I like the risk versus reward there just isn't worth it. Like, Diana was in quite a good position. I feel like it's just safer to switch the Rayquaza out into Kyogre and go for an Encore onto Xerneas. But the idea, obviously, behind her play is surely Xerneas isn't going to stay in and get Encored. It has to switch out. So Diana was hoping that, okay, Paul has to switch out to Xerneas because he can't eat up the Encore. I'll knock out the Groudon, and then the game is over, basically. So, yeah, I think, like, definitely can't falter for that play. I mean, she's ahead of game, and she expected of play I think a lot of times people would be making. Paul ends up not going for it though, and I think it's going to be near impossible to win this one now.
Whimsicott switches out for that Kyogre, preserving that rain for later on as Xerneas here uses Dazzling Gleam. We've already seen Groudon reveal Earth Power. Does do a lot of damage as Whimsicott now goes to its Focus Sash. And now Groudon using Earth Power here. It looks like Stack Attack is going to go ahead and eat its berry. You can't even see it eat its berry.
Can it survive this though? Let's see.
Yeah, big damage here. Stack Attack gets KO'd, so, you know, Stack Attack, not the most especially defensive Pokemon, just succumbing to one Earth Power despite that Shuka Berry. So it's going to come down to heavily damaged Kyogre and a heavily damaged Whimsicott. So it looks like Diana might just have to go straight to the drawing board for Game 3 here.
Yeah, I mean, she played it right. It just came down to reading into Xerneas switching out there, and it's, once again, definitely a fair play to make. It's just Paul's in a position where he's like, okay, well, if she kind of over-predicts and gets into her head too much, then I'll just win the game. And even if not, like, I'll eat up the Encore, and then, like, it's still not like a... The game isn't completely over, right? But I don't know.
You're stuck protecting for 3 turns, but, I mean, a couple of those turns, you're going to be successfully protected.
Right. I mean, I think, like, you at least... You force the Whimsicott to Encore that turn, and then you switch out the following turn. So, I don't know. I mean, like, I think it was just safer to switch into Rayquaza and Encore the Whimsicott, because then you can pivot out back out into Kyogre. Your Whimsicott can go back out into Kyogre, but yeah, I mean, Diana had a really great lead, and I don't know. I think, like, had she gone for the safer play, she would have had quite a good advantage. Like, it wouldn't have been game over by any means, and so, you know, I think, once again, her play makes sense in the sense that if Paul does go for the switch, then you just seal up the game right there because you knock out the Groudon, and Xerneas will just fade to the Stack Attack. But, I mean, that, you know, Paul, on the other hand, gets a lot of good information. He steals the game away, and he learns that the Whimsicott does have Encore, so like, it will be a lot harder for Diana to kind of play with that. That being said, Encore is still something you always have to watch out for on Paul's end, especially just because, like, it makes you think twice about clicking Geomancy. But yeah, I mean, both games, Paul's been very content setting up immediately, so we'll see if he makes any adjustments, because it feels like he was behind in this game, but maybe he predicts Diana to not bring the Whimsicott this time around.
Here we go now, jumping into Game 3. Xerneas and Incineroar here for Paul again. No need to change the leads at all. He's been successfully getting up Geomancies.
Okay.
As it looks like Kyogre and Stack Attacker are going to be the leads for Diana.
So I like the Stack Attack adjustment this time around because you're pretty much forced to fake out the Stack Attack to prevent it from Trick Rooming. So that means Kyogre gets its free attack off, and that means you can knock out the Incineroar, which covers out the fake out and the Intimidate option. So.
But if you do that, then if you knock out that Incineroar, then that Incineroar is just going to turn into a Groudon and do a lot of damage to that Stack Attack in the next turn.
Right, well, it's like the same position we were in that first game, where then you could just pivot out Stack Attack onto Rayquaza. So kind of interesting. I mean, Stack Attack certainly exerts so much pressure here. Paul has been kind of attacking the biggest threat the entire time and not really predicting around it because he probably feels that there's no need to. So this time around, we'll see if Paul was comfortable enough being in the same position as he was in that first game, because that clearly didn't work out too well for him. So you have to decide, do you go for the fake out of the Stack Attack? I mean, you could even, like, protect the Xerneas and pivot out straight onto Groudon, but it's actually Kyogre swapping out.
Yeah, so Kyogre now switching out here. Whimsicott is going to take the kill, so Whimsicott is here as well. So just in case Stack Attack can't deal with his Xerneas, Whimsicott is on the field to provide some extra support. Incineroar here uses fake out, going to hit in that Stack Attack. Not much damage done at all as Xerneas, again,
nice
Geomancy. So 3 straight games, 3 straight fake outs and Geomancies for Paul's side of the field, as now Xerneas gets its boost that it enjoys so much.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about, right? You don't need to necessarily lead Whimsicott, and Xerneas is still, like, at any point there's the threat of Encore, and so that's a great play by Diana, you know, not just going for the knockout immediately. I think certainly this time around she's going to want to go for Encore, but the nice thing is, like, last time she didn't have much else next to it. This time there's Stack Attacka, which means, I mean, like, regardless of what Xerneas goes for, this time you probably go for the safer Encore, and Stack Attack can't set up a Trick Room. Instead, it's actually going to opt to switch out, but I think that makes sense. I think this time Diana's definitely going to want to commit like 2 Encores onto
Encore,
Lasernius, yeah.
Kyogre now switches in for that stack attack and preserving it for later on. Memorial Sea is activating. The heavy rain is going to hit the field yet again. Now, as Xerneas here using this turn to protect, as it looks like Whimsicott probably just going to go for the Encore in that Xerneas protect. Yes, it does, and Incineroar is probably going to try to go and break that Focus Sash on Whimsicott. It is going to be able to break that Focus Sash on Whimsicott with a U-turn. So going to go ahead and allow, you know, Paul to pivot a little bit. Probably that Groudon is going to take the field yet again.
Yeah, so here's the scary thing though, right? Like, Paul's Encore there, I mean, he has to protect there, but now you just go for the double protect most likely with Xerneas. If you get it, then Whimsicott faints and Xerneas wins, right? Xerneas Groudon should be able to just clean through everything. So this is still not over by any means. I mean, Diana made some nice adjustments. She had the option to go for Trick Room there, but I can completely understand why she doesn't necessarily want to set up Trick Room when she's got, you know, Whimsicott in the back. And Stack Attack, I really can't touch the Groudon either. So I don't know. I think Trick Room could have been okay there. Hard to really say for sure, but now I think Paul definitely wants to go for the double protect, and Diana's basically hoping that he doesn't get it. The question is, does Diana predict her not to go?
Here it is!
Oh, and he gets it! Oh, that's why it was so risky.
Huge protect right there from that Xerneas as Kyogre now using protect as well. So it looks like Groudon will be able to just go for an Earth Power, some sort of Fire attack into that Whimsicott to get the KO. Here's the Eruption from that Groudon, and it does connect, and it does get the KO. So wow, huge double protect right there from the Xerneas over on Paul's side. Such a small chance for it to happen, but it just pulled up.
Yeah,
pulled up for it, yeah.
Wow, that was Paul's best play, right? Like, of course you're going to go for it. The odds of it aren't great, but they're still non-insignificant, right? Like, it's by far his best play there, and now you're in quite a tricky position because Kyogre, the sun is still up, you're staring down a +2 Xerneas, Groudon has Earth Power, so it can bypass any potential wide guards. I mean, I just really don't see how Diana actually really can win this one. I think you can just double up onto the Xerneas slot.
Yeah, so Stack Attack now switching out, Rayquaza taking the field, trying to pull something that was similar in Game 1, baiting that Earth Power in that Rayquaza slot to allow at least Kyogre to get the KO on that Groudon. As Xerneas here uses Dazzling Gleam, gonna do some big damage to that Kyogre. Rayquaza barely hangs on yet again as Groudon just content to go for an Eruption here again.
Outspeeding the Kyogre.
Yeah,
too.
so gets the KO on that Rayquaza, and that airlock is gone, so Kyogre won't be able to do anything here.
And yeah, obviously hoping that the Rayquaza maybe doesn't get knocked out there, hoping Kyogre maybe outspeeds, but Paul's Groudon looks like it is as speedy as it gets. And I mean, all of these games came down to how is the Xerneas dealt with, right? Stack Attack came out this game, but it's not able, didn't set up Trick Room, didn't really pressure with Gyro Ball. I don't know, I just, the turn where Stack Attack was switched back out, it makes sense, right? You pivot out into Kyogre, but the thing is, yeah, if you don't get the double protect, if Paul gets it, you just lose. And I don't know if the odds of that are better than just going for a Trick Room and playing around something that's a little bit more guaranteed, especially because Paul's Groudon had revealed itself to be faster earlier.
Yeah, you said he was one of the best Xerneas Groudon players in the world, and it is showing at this moment. You know, a lot of players might falter in the face of a Whimsicott, but Paul has not faltered at all, as the Groudon uses Earth Power into that Stack Attack. That Shuka Berry does not matter whatsoever at that point. After that Dazzling Gleam, it looks like Diana's just one Dazzling Gleam away, or sorry, Paul is one Dazzling Gleam away from securing his victory here in round 4.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much near impossible to win this game after the double protect. And it is a shame, obviously, because the odds are significantly in Diana's favor for her to get that double protect. But yeah, I mean, both games we can point to one really pivotal moment. Obviously, in that second game, just switching out Whimsicott, expecting the Xerneas to switch out and it not paying off. And then in that third game, you know, I mean, I don't know. I would have liked to see Stack Attack go for something like Trick Room because I feel like a Kyogre under Trick Room is so good with Stack Attack. But Diana was probably worried a little bit about the Amoonguss and was like, okay, well, I'll play with the double protect odds. If you don't get it, then I'll win. But once again, odds of that aren't exactly the best. So Paul Chua really ekes it out in a really crazy set because it felt like Diana was in control of all 3 games, but only ended up obviously winning the first.
Yeah, obviously in Game 1, the key play right there was definitely Groudon